Ladies and gentlemen, the case brought forth by Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan District Attorney, has fallen apart. The Trump indictment, is a legal embarrassment. That's not just my opinion. The New Yorker. Is the Trump indictment a legal embarrassment? When you have liberal publications, The Atlantic, New Yorker, Washington Post, Times, other publications, really asking if there's anything that would actually harm Trump politically or legally within this indictment, primarily because there's no federal crime, and also because you have Congress wanting to find out if this was politically motivated. So Alvin Bragg the other day and the Manhattan District Attorney's Office lost a court case to Jim Jordan and James Comer. They're going to have to testify. It's not just the Manhattan DA, it's other attorneys as well. They almost certainly spoke to, emailed, conversed in some manner, communicated in some manner with people associated with the Democratic Party. So Democrats, what they do is they have 10, 20 public relations executives, activists, attorneys, professors. You can look at, like, for example, the Honorable James Comey, when he leaked the memos, the Trump memos, he did so through, I believe it was a professor. Okay, you can look at the Durham probe that found out that the Clinton campaign purchased the Steele dossier. That's why they were fined, and they purchased the Steele dossier through attorneys that bought the dossier. And then they tried to set up and frame Trump with one tech executive and a team of tech people in addition to a team of attorneys. One in particular, Sussman. Now, Durham tried to prosecute the Durham probe in the same manner that Mueller tried to prosecute the Mueller probe, which was get people on lying to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. But the Federal Bureau of Investigation officials, they were all in on investigating Trump, or, depending on how you look at it, setting up and framing him, which is obviously what took place. Okay? What took place was Mueller could not prove that Trump was an operative of the Kremlin, because that never happened. That was a fabricated, absurd, nonsensical, irrational fantasy created by the Clinton campaign, the DNC, which they were fined for with the Steele dossier, and loyalists who were eventually kicked out of the Bureau, and other who retired also from other departments in the U.S. government. He was not an operative of another country. These are the same people, by the way, who think Trump tried to overthrow democracy. They never accepted Trump defeating Clinton, not one day. And then they opine, and then they preach, and they condemn Trump for not accepting mashed potato brains defeating him. So, I mean, when you talk about the division and how polarized the country is, it didn't start with Trump supporters. They just happened to win. It was Democrats and the morally superior among us who tried to create this fantasy world where they're suddenly thrust into the 1930s and 1940s Europe, and they are the ones opposing authoritarian, despotic, totalitarian behavior because Trump, First Step Act. You generally, despots aren't into prison reform like Trump. Trump allocated more funding to historically black colleges and universities than any president ever, made the funding permanent. Trump was the antithesis of the militant, never-ending conflict, neoconservative foreign policy that guides the Democratic Party. We had the Doha Agreement that Biden botched. Those 13 Americans should be alive today. Those over 100 Afghans should be alive today. The Doha Agreement, the Abraham Accords, first president to step foot in North Korea. He renegotiated trade deals. We had record low poverty with Trump. We had record highs in household median income with Trump. But you know what? He's a terrible monster. His words, compel people to commit criminal acts. These are all absurd allegations. Nothing that they accuse Trump of has ever been proven, and even this indictment has fallen apart because they have to now prove that this wasn't a political stunt. Hit subscribe to this channel, ladies and gentlemen. I won't have a live stream, but I will have another segment before midnight tonight. Hit subscribe. Go to hagoodman.com to read my writing in The Hill, The Huffington Post, Salon, The Jerusalem Post, The Federalist, and other publications. Go to go to contactgoodman88@gmail.com and become part of a newsletter there. And also, ladies and gentlemen, to my super thanks, that's below, and to my new Patreons, thank you. But, ladies and gentlemen, number one, there's no federal crime within the indictment. There are 34 misdemeanors that have to be elevated to felonies, and the only way they're elevated to felonies is through the only way they can be elevated to felonies is through the notion that Trump committed a federal crime, but the FEC didn't find Trump. The FEC did find Clinton and President Obama's campaign. They did not find Trump, okay? So it's 34-count felony. None of the misdemeanors are actually felonies. So even within this indictment, they still can't find a crime, okay? Had they focused on Hillary, and I think Hillary Clinton will be the 24 nominee, objectively, you can't have servers as a government official. It's not allowed. You can't have secret private servers that siphon emails that are classified and top secret and SAP intel. It's impossible. It's not even possible from a cybersecurity perspective. It is an impossible task to do, and it's only illegal. Like, there's no legal way to do that. But Democrats and the government don't look at things that way. And so when people see what took place, like, oh, well, you know what? The Honorable James Comey couldn't find a crime. And the Honorable Attorney General Loretta Lynch couldn't find a crime. It's like, no. They're covering up for one political side. One political side, that's a partisan viewpoint, but as Christopher Hitchens stated, you can be partisan. Oftentimes, being right means you're partisan. That's why, like, when you have, it's really funny, you have these people that, and we can just go on forever, but the point is, Hunter, for example, and I think Hillary Clinton will be the 24 nominee. Hunter Biden, litany of crimes. They're not going after him. When asked, the Honorable Christopher Wray says, you know what? There's a Delaware prosecutor, federal prosecutor going, they're investigating. There's nothing to investigate. They already know that kickbacks were. Here's the thing. When you look at like MSNBC and CNN, they try desperately to make everything morally relative. So like, oh, how did this money get into Trump? Like, Trump doesn't have a laptop full of incriminating pay-to-play schemes where people are literally asking, how can you use your influence on the company's behalf? I mean, you can't even make this up. Could you imagine if Trump had an email or Eric Trump or Donald Trump Jr. said, oh, or Kushner, we give 10% to Donald Trump? Could you imagine they give, the big man is Biden, and they get, within the New York Post reporting, 10% of everything Hunter gets, according to one of the articles, goes to, or one of the emails, goes to Biden. Okay, so our president has been getting kickbacks through Hunter, through very, very shady business deals that involve countries, one country in particular that couldn't invade Taiwan. I did a segment prior to this one, and it's not really going, people aren't really that interested, but unfortunately, God forbid, it could be very tragic and terrible. I don't think people really understand how bad things could get within a geopolitical perspective. Because Biden's administration is an absolute unmitigated disaster. An unmitigated disaster and catastrophe. The only positive light for Democrats is that it's not Trump. Other than that, Trump was better in terms of the economy and foreign policy, objectively better. Hey, give me your thoughts below. There is no indictment. There's no federal crime. Give me your thoughts. Thank you. I'll be back in a couple of